I remember when I joined the United States Air Force and I was in May of 2001. And I remember when 9/11 happened and I joined the Air Force to serve my country. I wanted to deploy, I wanted to do my mission. And as an aircraft mechanic, I was ready to go and do whatever I needed to do anywhere in the world. And that's how I was trained. That's the example that I was following from my sergeants and the people who mentored me. And I remember getting word that my particular unit in California was getting ready to deploy to support Operation Enduring Freedom. And there was a individual, a fellow airman who I went to basic training with. And this airman I looked up to because he had Boy Scout experience. So he was an Eagle Scout. And he seemed like he went through basic training without really stressing about any of the normal things that most people would stress about. He also was assigned to the same aircraft as me in technical school. So we both attended the same technical school up in Texas, in northern Texas at Sheppard Air Force Base. And I looked up to him because he seemed like he handled the technical school to become an aircraft mechanic very well. Nothing seemed to phase him. And while we were in technical school, we I remember I will never forget that day. We got called to go back to our squadron early. And we had been told that the United States is under attack, and we're not sure by who. And I remember marching back, thinking that okay, this is like a fire drill, or maybe this is like an all base drill. And I remember thinking that this was some sort of a training exercise. And when I got back to the dorm, to our squadron area, I remember everyone was watching TV and it was very quiet. And of course, I didn't care about watching TV. For us, it was going to be a half day, and it was like nine or it was really early in the morning. So it was before lunch, and I remember going back to my dorm room and setting my gear down, and I would never forget the silence. Everyone had been let out of class, and it was silent all over the dorm, and I couldn't figure out where everyone was. So I went down to the first floor. I went to the day room, and it was like this. There was like this crowd of trainees lined up and listening to what's happening in the day room. The TV was on as loud as it could be. And of course, I wanted to know what was going on. So I pushed past people and I peered around the corner. And that's when I saw everyone was watching a news channel. And in the news channel, there was smoke coming out of these skyscraper buildings. I didn't know there was in New York, but I just saw smoke coming out of these skyscraper buildings. And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, they said we're under attack. I see smoke coming out of these skyscraper buildings. And I just put two and two together and said, okay, so someone shot missiles or someone did something to these skyscraper buildings, but we're safe. DC seems like it's safe. All right, I'm gonna go see if the chow hall's open and get something to eat, and maybe I'll be able to watch TV while I'm eating, and I'll figure out what's going on. So I left our squadron. I went over to the dining facility, and while I was getting my food, I looked up at the TV and I noticed that there had been at the time there were several planes that were showing like the the planes hitting the towers. And I remember feeling really like a pit in my stomach, like, oh crap, we're gonna go to war. Like we hadn't been at war for a minute. And I remember this cadet, sorry, not this cadet, I remember this trainee that I had looked up to. And I remember him looking at the screen. We were eating together. I remember him looking at the screen and seeing the planes hit the building, and I saw that like this white, like this pale like reaction, like all the blood had left his face, and he looked like he wore glasses, and he looked like he was very afraid. And I'd never seen like that type of fear in someone's face until like I saw him and his reaction when he looked up and saw the planes hitting the towers. Fast forward, we complete technical school. We don't like obviously run to war. We complete technical school and we get to our units, and I'm in Northern California, Travis Air Force Base. And I talked to him. I'm like, hey, it looks like we're going to deploy. It looks like our unit's getting called up. And I remember him saying he was a National Guard airman, so Air National Guard in the California. And I remember him saying like, I don't agree with what he's doing. I don't agree with going to war right now. And I'm like, well, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, we have to go. Like we're airmen, we're maintainers. This is what we do. If our planes go, we're going. We're gonna make sure that the planes are ready to launch in the missions, and we're gonna do our job. And I remember him like disagreeing with me. He's just no, I'm not gonna go. I don't think we should go. I'm going to I'm going to see if I can. I'll tell him the squadron commander, and since I'm Air National Guard, I'm going to do all my commitment, and I'm not going to go. And I was like, that's kind of weird because like I may not agree with the president. I don't know exactly what he's doing at the time, but since I'm an airman, I really don't have a choice. I'm going. Like I'm just going to be the best airman that I could. I'm going to do the best maintenance that I can. I'm essentially going to compartmentalize what is happening in the policy and the politics and all that. And I'm going to focus on the things that I have to do in order to succeed. And I'm going to focus on the things that my unit has to do in order for us to be successful as a unit. And shortly after that, I went and I talked to my squadron commander and I volunteered for the next chalk. Um, we send troops out in chalks. And I remember volunteering. I was like, hey, I want to go. And they're like, hey, you got to finish up a little more training first. We want to let you get a little bit more experience, but the next chalk that we have, we'll put you on it. And once I was confirmed for my next chalk, I ended up running into this airman again. And I asked him, like, hey, how's it going? And I was kind of like thinking that his plan wouldn't work. And it was a couple of months since we had completed training, and I was getting ready to I got confirmed and I was getting ready to deploy. So I was going through all my appointments and making sure that my will was good and just all the gear was ready to go for my deployment. And I remember talking to him and I'm like, hey dude, like are you going with us? Everyone is getting called up. All these like all the new airmen that arrived on base, we're all getting ready to deploy, and we're really excited to get a chance to do our mission. We had no idea where we were going at the time, but we just all knew that we had been confirmed for the next chalk. And I remember the pride that I felt and the pride that some of my fellow airmen felt. And talking to him, I was expecting him to feel that same pride. And the problem was when I talked to him, he seemed like elated, like joyful, and also relieved. And I was like, "Oh, great! So are you going? Like, are you coming with us?" And he was like, "No, I completed my commitment for this year as an Air National Guard troop, and I don't have to go because I don't. And I'm glad because I don't agree with the policies of going into Afghanistan." And I just looked at him like I was like flabbergasted. I was just like, "Man, I looked up to you. Like you did well in basic training, you did well in technical school, you did well on the airframe and the follow-on training, and you just seem like a great airman. Like you're fit for this. Why don't you want to deploy?" That's what I was thinking in my head. Why don't you want to deploy? The Looking back on that now, I can see that what allowed me to deploy and not worry about what policies that are being made at the presidential level and all that was I was able to compartmentalize and focus on what my role was as an airman. I was able to focus on the the technical aspects of my job, the professional aspects of my job, the functional aspects of my job, and I was able to focus on the things that I needed to do in order to support my unit so my unit could be successful. And so when I read the news, when when I watched the news, I wasn't watching the news to look for a reason or something that I disagreed with or I didn't agree with. I was actually watching the news so that I could be informed on how I needed to move and how prepared I needed to be. Like how when we were going to get ready to deploy, when was this operation going to kick off and all that stuff. But when he would watch the news, he was not able to compartmentalize what is happening on the national level and in politics, and he wasn't able to compartmentalize that and focus on what he needed to do to become a good airman and to support the unit. I don't think I made a mistake by volunteering to deploy for Operation Enduring Freedom. And when I think about what is happening in the world today, I know that there are some people out there who have my approach. We compartmentalize, we focus on the things that we needed to do, in order for us to do our job, to pay our bills, to take care of our family the best way that we know how. And we really don't focus on what's happening in politics, especially if what's happening in politics is going to demotivate us from the things that we need to do in our career.